and wrap it up with the Quebec changes. So, starting in December 2014, Quebec budget says that they're wasting too much time on little claims. They're going to impose a minimum expenditure threshold where basically if you're under $50,000, don't bother claiming. You're not going to get any Quebec. It's not worth their time. Okay? They also used to have different rates, different rates for wages and for universities and different things, and now it's all one rate. If you're a large company, it's 14%. If you're a small company, it's 30% on everything, whether you pay university or whether you pay employee. And it's 30% of the first $3 million, kind of like the CRA credits, and after the $3 million, it goes down to the low company rate. So again, they've kind of adopted that policy. Okay? So basically, for corporations with assets of less than $50 million, which is probably the majority that we're dealing with, there's a $50,000 expenditure threshold before you can earn tax credits. Okay? And then it goes on a sliding scale between 50 and 75 million. Not that it's that much more important, but basically, you need a minimum 50,000 if your taxable capital is under 50 million, and as it goes up to 75 million, you need a minimum 225,000. So for these large companies, the first 225,000 they spend, they don't get any credits on anymore. So what was the rationale for all this? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But more importantly, what I found is that Quebec actually has a really well thought out program. Brilliant. Like Quebec doesn't pay anything for materials or capital or overhead because they say, we're here to create high-tech jobs in Quebec, and by doing so, to assume that more people will come and create more and create kernels to grow it. Brilliant. And not only that, every dollar that you pay in Quebec wages, we get a big share of, right? If someone's making over $100,000, we're taking 46 to 49 cents of we take half of their money. And as we talked about earlier, the majority of the claims go to the companies who only get 15%. So I take 50% and I give you back 15. I'm still ahead of the game. The only way you get more credits is by paying more wages. And by paying more wages, I'm actually ahead of the game. I'm making more money as the revenue. Okay. If I pay you for materials, you could buy materials from the States, from anywhere. How's that helping the Canadian tax system? That could bankrupt the Canadian tax system. That's not hedged at all. Okay? So the people, in my view, who developed the Quebec system are clever. Very clever. They understand these principles, and they put them into play very effectively. Quebec gets a lot of foreign investment. They do all kinds of neat stuff in addition to that. They give a 5-year tax holiday if you hire someone with a master's degree or equivalent, and they're involved in R&D more than 60%. They don't pay Quebec income taxes for 5 years, which makes the tax rate competitive with any industrialized country in the world. If you pull out the provincial tax, they only pay federal tax here. It's a very great place to live. It takes away a lot of the barriers. The individual. You have to get approved to bring them in, and then it's a 5-year tax holiday. So, I mean, all kinds of really cool things to say, let's get high-tech people in here, share their knowledge, build a really good base that will continue to build itself. I love the vision. I think there's a lot more vision, sadly, than at the federal level when I watch this. So this is how credits they used to have at all different rates, and this is the rate it's going to be. 30% qualified CCPC, 14% large company. Easy. Okay. So what was their rationale? So I read through the budget, the economic statement, and why are they doing this? And they said that 40% of the businesses claiming had less than $50,000 with an average of around $25,000. So 40% of the business had an average of $25,000, the smaller ones. It didn't seem to be essential for them to carry out activities in Quebec. It wasn't making them move to Quebec or really creating a great incentive. But, and here's the big one, the administrative cost of reviewing these claims in sometimes were higher than the tax credits granted themselves. They're saying it's not a valuable use of resource. We're spending more time auditing them than the actual credits themselves. It's a waste of our money, it's a waste of our effort. And for the smaller claims, it's not enough of an incentive to keep the company in Quebec or not. It's not making any difference, is the argument. Again, I don't know what to say. I'm saying that's interesting. It's going to cut down a lot of the red tape and problems, but what does that foretell for the small claimant? Are the CRA going to start contemplating similar things? I say, I don't know. It's a Liberal government in Quebec, so we'll see who wins the election if their policies are standard. I don't know if any political party is going to be favorable or unfavorable. I look at them all pretty much the same and say, well, whatever happens, we'll just hope for the best. All right?
It's an economic fact that most small businesses are creating most new jobs, and yet this is going against that.
Well, that's exactly. On my other slides in the morning, I talk about the system itself. And basically, if we look back in 2004, last published results, where there's 20,000 claimants, there's a standard 4,000 claimants of a large size company. It's not growing at all. It's 4,000, it's been 4,000, it's going to stay 4,000. It's been like that for 10 years. Small claimants are growing at 15% per year. They're the only ones growing. So again, yeah, I don't know. I'm not an economist. I don't know what effect that's going to have on the economy, but yeah, a $50,000 threshold at the federal level would make huge differences for all the small claimants and even some of the medium-sized ones where they're really going to have to evaluate it. Is this really worth it?
When you say 50,000 threshold, do you mean the first 50,000 doesn't count? Or
of expenditures.
Or you've got to have 50,000 before you can, if you had 50 now, you can claim all of it.
I believe it's the first 50,000 doesn't count, but I'm not actually sure, to be honest. I just read the budget documents. So that was one of the first questions I had. I'm assuming that the first 50,000 doesn't count, or it may be that you need to exceed that threshold. Again, I don't really know. This is relatively new, so. Yeah, well, it was late 24, but I haven't dealt with it as far as seeing it applied anywhere. Okay. Just some of the LinkedIn sites, social media, things like that. A lot of the comments I get are off these different websites. If you guys aren't members, you might want to contemplate joining LinkedIn and then join one or all of these groups. They have a lot of similar articles, but some of them have different ones. The very bottom one, R&D tax credit form, is kind of neat because it has people who do SR&D tax credits from an international perspective. And it's funny to post an article and then guys in the US and UK are like, we have or Australia, exactly the same problems as you. But they always say, but our guys are even tougher than the CRA. And I'm always saying, oh yeah, come spend a day in my shoes and we'll talk. All right, so there's the international definition of the project, which again, we took our Canadian definition from the Frascati manual. Oh, that's okay because we're wrapping it up anyways. Okay, lastly, I just like to recap this on what the YMP is each year, and that people get confused that this is when you pay a specified employee the wages or trying to avoid bonusing out but salarying out, that it's only the first $268,000 that we can pay them as wages and still get credits on. We can pay them wages more than that, but we just don't earn any credits after that, right? We just get a deduction. So again, when you're planning, when you have clients that got a bonus out at year end and they give a bonus to themselves and they're involved in R&D, they just lost credits. They're going to pay the same personal tax as if they got it as wages, except now they don't get any tax credits on it. Okay? So again, you want to, when you're doing SR&D credits, you have to be more proactive, I'd say, than your normal accountant. Your normal accountant at the end of the year says, Ed, you made $650,000, and after $500,000, you pay higher rate of tax. I'll bonus you $150,000. It's nice and easy. With me, I have to say, Ed, you had a great year. Do you expect this year, next year to be better or worse or the same? And if so, we don't want to bonus you $350,000. Let's set your salary at $350,000 right now, okay? And that way, all the costs that we pay you could be eligible for SR&ED, because if we bonus you, they're not. And for you, you're going to pay the same tax anyways at the end of the day. You may prepay a little bit of it, but it's not going to be enough to make up the difference. All right, any questions on that? And just an overview of how complicated the whole specified employee, non-specified employee, how that all works. Looks, I put that in because a lot of people are confused on that, but not really a new thing. All right, guys, any other questions before we wrap it up? Excellent. Well, congratulations for another good year.